You are listening to the Book Perspective Podcast, a podcast for all types of books. And even though we read all types of books across all different types of genres, we want to give a disclaimer. Many of our books and a lot of our content sometimes is intended for mature audiences. And we don't believe in censorship, but we do want our listeners to have the opportunity to decide if our episode or podcast is good for them. So, with that, let's get into the episode. Hey, it's Dominique.
And Keely.
And you are listening to Book Perspective. And this week we are covering The White Guy Dies First, which is an anthology. The main author, though, is
Terry J. Benton-Walker.
Yeah. But first, Keely, how's your week been? Which I know it's not been great.
Yeah. I mean, it's Monday, so this start of the week has been okay. But last week was awful because I was sick, and then I felt like I was better, and then I was sick again, and I was lonely, and I was stuck in the house with Evie, and she wanted more attention than I was physically, mentally, and emotionally able to give her. I would be holding her all day, and then I put her down to just get some space, and then she's crying and smacking
She's
me, and
literally
I'm
an infant.
Dog.
Like Evie.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Child.
I'm like the life of having a Velcro puppy.
Yeah. Who knew? Who knew? This is Peyton's dog.
Yeah. Air quotations. Peyton's dog.
Yeah, no. Keely had the crud. I have not had the full-on crud, but Carter was sick the week before we left. We just got back from Florida. Florida was okay. It was warmer there, and now I brought some more back with me because everything's melting.
It's nice. I mean,
yeah.
We say nice, and it's like
40.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like 40 to 60 degree, like all week somewhere. So I'll take it. I will take it.
Yeah, 100%.
That's done. I feel like I got like something checked off my list. That's done. The last basketball game is this week. Cameron and them are undefeated. And so I'm like, they don't win. They have to win. So that's done. But then I start my other second job. But I have a part-time job. And then this was supposed to be this is a part-time job, but it wasn't supposed to be as busy as it is. But they first were like 2 days. Now they're like 3. So I think I'm going to quit my other part-time once I'm like sure that this is good. But I'm going to have to give it a few weeks. So I'm probably going to be, it's okay that I'm busy right now because like school's pretty much like handled. All my assignments are like pre-done. So I just have to like finish them. So I just like, that. I just like, I don't know. I'm ready for August. I'm ready to be done with school. I'm over it. So, there's that. But, anywho. So, this book, I like. All right. So, is there a blurb? I mean, I'm assuming there's a blurb, but there's always a blurb, but.
Yes. Okay. It's not like, not
It's
really.
An anthology. So, there's that.
Yeah. So, really all that it is, it's like 3 sentences is the blurb. And it's 13 scary stories, 13 authors of color, 13 times we survived the first kill. The White Guy Dies First, and The White Guy Dies First is a powerful and entertaining collection for young adult readers featuring 13 scary stories in which the white guy dies first. And I want to emphasize that 13 times we survived the first kill. Doesn't mean the characters of color survived. They survived the first kill.
That is a good point. I didn't think about that. But now that you say that, that is true. So before I do general summary, I did pull up just like the book facts. So this book was published in 2024. It came out July 16th. It is a YA book.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. There's 13 authors, a couple of which I already knew, some I didn't. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it about that, I guess. Okay, so general summary. So there's not much to say about it because it's an anthology. So all of the stories kind of all like again, they're all, I guess, horror of some aspect, some more
Kind of like
than
horror,
others.
thriller.
Yeah, some are kind of like not psychological, but like more fantastical,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. I don't really know. I'm not good with terms. Um, but yeah, so they all kind of like have that element, and they all have like, or most of them, I say, have like underlying meanings. There's it's not just like because it's called The White Guy Died First. It's not just about people of color. Like there is like gender representation, other not just black like representation. There's Asian, Native American. Yeah,
I
there's
think
indigenous.
so.
Because there's that one story. Yeah, there's several races represented.
Mm-hmm.
The last story. Actually no, there's two stories about like gay characters. So that's represented in that as well. So there's not it's not just like a race thing. Just even though like the title kind of like
It's yeah.
yeah
It's
insinuates that.
fully like marginalized
Yeah, that's a good word.
authors and characters.
I will say, so I guess that's really all the general summary. I will say, like, so I've only read two anthologies, and this is my second one. These stories were longer because I was the last one that we read, they were shorter. So I was like, oh, like these are kind of like going on a bit, but I can't even remember how many were in that other one. But I don't feel like there was that many more. But maybe this book is just longer, or I don't know. But the stories seem longer or like a little more developed. So I do
Yeah.
like that about that. If you could describe this word or this book in one word, what would you say?
I would
I don't
say
know.
yeah, trying to narrow down one word is difficult because
they're like
it's a
similar, but they're all very
range.
different. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's possible.
I entertaining.
It is entertaining. I would say it's gonna have to be something like surface level like that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I guess I kind of already said it. Like representation. Like I just feel like it does. Like it just is very like representative of like a lot of different things. And I
Mm-hmm.
like that, like when it's entertaining, but like there's also like underlying meanings to stuff. So I enjoy that a lot. I
Kind
am
of like
sure.
very Jordan Peele-esque.
Yeah. Oh, there was something I just thought about something earlier when I was finishing, and I can't remember. I was like, oh no, this has nothing to do with Jordan Peele. Now I remember. I was like, one of these stories gave me, which is so funny because you did not like this book, the handyman method, and I was like, this makes me think. Is it the one at the end? Maybe I was like, this makes me think of the handyman method.
Oh, well, the thing is, the very last one was actually the one that I liked the most.
That's hilarious. That's so funny because I was like, that makes me think of that. And we read it for book club, and I was like, this is giving me handyman method. So if you haven't read that, that's just like a little plug. Okay, I'm sure there's triggers. This is YA though, so nothing is very. It's graphic, but like not like there's not. I feel like the kills can be a little graphic. There's murder.
Yeah, let me see. The oh gosh, I'm like, what book is this? As it's sitting right in front of my face. Let's see triggers. Obviously death, violence, body horror, um, murder, racism. Obviously, is a big one with this. Uh, transphobia, homophobia, um, kidnapping, self harm. Um, there's a lot.
Okay. I mean, I
But
would assume there's lots
I
of
don't
stories.
know how like notable, like
Yeah. Those
some
are
of
like the big ones.
these are, but yeah.
Okay. So if you have not read this book and you don't wish to be spoiled, then you can pause here and come back later. Otherwise, we're going to get into it. Obviously, we're still working on like our new rhythm, but we're gonna we have our like questions, but we also have a bunch of different stories. It seems like we came up with a new way to do it, and we have not yet read one book. I think that works for this because we've had like a memoir, we had a series book. This is an anthology, but we're gonna kind of just like touch on each one and talk about them and then do like overall discussion as well. So it actually opens up with a prologue, I guess you would call it. It's a blog. It's called Girlfriends Online or Girlfriends, and it's an online blog. And it's the 13th anniversary of is it Jacoby? How do you say that? Okay, so it's the 13th anniversary of Jacoby Warren going missing. He went missing on the 13th floor on a building on 13th Street, which was like a studio, and they found there was 13 movie posters, which were films that only he had ever seen, and something there said like the white guy dies first. I think he was writing a film or something like that in connection with him and like his film, there are 13 white males who are like range from the age of 16 to 60 also missing. So that's kind of what we like open up with about these stories. So the first one is All Eyes on Me, and I never can pronounce this author. We read another book by her, but it's Faridah, and I'm not gonna try to butcher her last name, but she also wrote Where Sleeping Girls Lie. So her story kind of just takes place. It takes place in 1987. Essentially, there's a string of missing people following this like carnival or circus, and our main character here is Helen. She is dating a white man named Asher. Most of the characters are late high school age, and she's been dating him for years. She's been trying to break up with him for years, because essentially she is a lesbian. She's into girls, and I don't think she's like accepted that she is though. But she goes to a gas station and he goes in first, and she's like in the car like trying to talk herself into like breaking up with him. But she does it, and like he comes out, and like anytime he even like touches her, anything, like she hates it. So then she goes to the gas station, and there's a woman in there who is with the circus or whatever, but working at the gas station. Which she asked a question because she was like, "That's weird," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's strange." But she like immediately kind of like has a connection with this girl, and then like she tells her about the circus or the carnival, whatever. They leave, and she goes to like this drive-in with Asher. He scares her, like dressed up as like a clown. Like she hates this man. He sucks. And so she's like, okay, we're gonna go to the circus. He loves clowns. Like at least if I break his heart there, like there will be a clown around. And so she goes into the house of mirrors, and like she is like, it's getting really weird in there. Then she thinks she sees like an Asher, but she like, okay, this is fake, like this isn't real, because like she sees some other like weird stuff, and she shoves him, and he actually like hits his head, and it looks like he's dying. So she's like, oh my gosh, but then he wakes up, and so she tells him like, hey, let's break up. I don't want to do this. And like she also, it's like she lives in a place called Nowhere, and so she's like, I want to go to Hollywood. And he's like, you're never gonna make it to Hollywood. Like that's not real. Like no one ever is gonna like. You're not gonna make it or whatever. I thought you would grow out of this. Like what? Aren't you guys the same age? He talks to her like he's a parent. But anyways, so then this clown shows up and stabs him with a knife, and it's the girl from the gas station. Her name is Beatrice, and so then Helen starts stabbing him, and they drag him to Beatrice's uncle's trailer because they all work at the circus. But then they like come back, and Asher's body's gone. So she's like, okay. And so Helen's basically like, what am I gonna do? And Beatrice is like, oh, like I can sneak you out of here. So she has Helen get in a costume, and she's like, you can now like be whoever you want to be. You can leave here. And she tells Helen, you're not the first one who like found clarity in the Hall of Mirrors. And that's how that one ends. Now, I did not love that one. I'm still kind of confused. So there's
Yeah,
that.
no, I didn't either. I ended up rating it 3 stars. I mean, I kind of liked it, I guess. I don't know. I like that it took place in the circus. That's, it was just weird and missing things like Asher's body. And then
I don't get it.
and then she just runs away to join the circus as a
I am
clown.
starting to think this is her writing style, which is just not for me, and that's fine. Yeah, I did not rate this one because before I started rating them, I probably would give it like a 3 or even like a 2.75. I am confused.
Yeah.
And
Honestly, I
like
think this
get much
is
from it.
probably the one that I liked least.
Yeah, I would agree.
Out of the whole thing.
And I'm surprised it's the opening one because it's not a very strong opener. Like if I was like, same. I'm not gonna keep reading after this. Like yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was the best one for an opener. Yeah, no, going through all of my ratings, it is by far the lowest. Oh, no, it is not.
Oh.
It is the second lowest.
Yeah. I might have one other one, but yeah, I didn't love that one. So that's that one. The second one is called Hedge by Kalynn Bayron, I believe. This one has 2 boys, Brandon and Wesley, and they are, I believe they're black. Helen was black, I believe, in the last one. I think they're black in this one. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they don't really mention it. I feel like if their race isn't mentioned, then they're black, and then like the other ones, they specify when they're like a different ethnicity or a race. But I feel like when they're not, I think they're black. So, yeah, they're like Brandon and Wesley. They're home. Their mom's at work. And their dad basically went missing like last year, and then he like turned up dead ish. He essentially his skin was found with nothing inside of it. So there's that. Brandon is younger than Wesley. He really like kind of blames his mom, like, I don't know, feels like she let him go wherever he went, whatever. And so I like jumped around in my notes, but they're home and these boys come over, and like one of the boys, he hates all 3. There's 3 boys, I think. They come over. I don't even write their names down because it doesn't matter. But he's like, I can't stand him. And he's like eternally ashy. And I was cackling. But in this one, I was like, okay, who's white? I didn't know who was white in this one. I guess whoever dies first, I'm assuming. But who died first? Teddy? But I thought he said Teddy was eternally ashy. So is it not Teddy?
I do want to point out that they mention a Kayla Malone, and I'm like, Malone?
Close. I don't know.
All happens on the last like 2 pages.
I know. I didn't know. I guess like whoever dies first, I'm assuming is white. So, but I feel like it was because Teddy is the one that finds him. I'll just go all right. So the boys come over and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna go to." It's called a topiary. No, that's not what it's called. Mm-hmm. What is the place called? Oh yeah, it's called a topiary garden, and that is where their dad died. So Brandon and Wesley at first, they're like, "Nah, I'm not gonna do that." But then Brandon's like, or no, then Wesley's like, "Well, like." Whatever, like I'll go. So Brandon's like, okay, well then I have to tag along. You know, that like sibling thing or whatever. But their dad's also like not the only one who's died there. Like people died there a lot, and they're getting ready to tear this place like down. But it's just like they die there in very weird ways. So they get there and they see like this hedge maze, which is actually where their dad died. But they like stay kind of like outside of the place. Who is it?
It was Chris.
Okay, Chris. So one of the boys is white. Chris. Because I was like, I'm pretty sure he said that Teddy was eternally ashy, and I took that down as a note because I laughed and I was like, okay, well then he's not white. So it's Teddy, Chris, and there's another guy.
Kel.
What's his name? Okay, yeah. So they're like drinking. Everyone is except for Wesley and Brandon. They don't drink, and Wesley is which one's older? Wesley's the driver, so like they're whatever. So they're like hanging out, and Brandon, like, he sees the maze, and he also sees, like, these, like, hedge figure thingies, whatever. Like bush, like when they cut them. Like those kind of things.
Edward Scissorhands
Um,
style.
yeah, and he's like looking at it, but he doesn't want to go in. So Teddy comes up and he's like picking on him. He's like, "Oh, you're scared, whatever. Like I'm gonna go in." So he climbs over like a fence or whatever to get in there, and he's like teasing him. And so he goes off into the maze, and then Brandon hears like weird noises, and then it sounds like a whimper, and he's like, "What is going on?" So he's like, "I don't want to be like a punk," but then he's like, "I'm gonna go get my brother." So he goes and gets like everybody, and the other boys like come back in, and then they hear like he can like hear Teddy like walking, but it's almost like he's like dragging his like leg, like he's like walking weird. So then the other boys like all go in, including his brother, and like one of the boys ends up like running back out screaming, but it's like these like vines like shoot out and like grab him and like drag him back into the maze. So he's like crying out for his brother. He's like, "Wesley, like, come on," or whatever. And then he sees him, but his left arm is like completely gone. His eyes are gone. His skin is like loose, like it's not attached to him anymore. And then, like, as that is happening, the vines attack Brandon because he's sitting there and because he was like about to go in and get his brother. So then they grab him too. And then, like, as that all happens, like, his mom calls. So, like, she's lost her husband, I'm assuming, and now her boys, all the same thing. And as they grab them, they turn the boys into the little hedge sculptures or whatever. So that's why there's only skin left, because they turn into bushes. And I was like, "Oh, I like this one." I think I gave it like a 4 out of 5. I was like, that was interesting.
Yeah, I gave it a 4.5. I really enjoyed this one. It was different. But in a good way. I like that it was just, teens jacking around,
Yeah,
and they end up jacking around in a place they shouldn't be, and end up getting taken over by monster plants. Like, it's unique,
I
and I
know.
really liked it.
It's a terrible way to die. I do not want to be turned into a plant. Please don't do that to me. The next one I really like the next one. The
Yeah,
next
so
one is
did
The
I.
Golden Dragon by is it I don't know.
Kendare Blake, I believe.
Kendare Blake. I was like, did I write that down right? Okay, Kendare Blake. That's interesting. Is that a guy? I wonder. No, look. It sounds kind of like a guy name, but nope. Nope, that's a woman. I was like, because this seems like a woman wrote this, but okay. Um, all right, so The Golden Dragon by Kendare Blake. So this opens up. We're at a Chinese restaurant, which is funny because the family's actually Korean, but I feel like that's like a real thing, like in America. Like so many like Asian ethnicities will like just sell Chinese food because that's what Americans know. They're like, "Oh, I don't know anything about Korean food or whatever, but I'll eat Chinese food." Like that's just so funny. So Sophie is the youngest daughter, and then she has an older sister, Summer, and like they're outside doing chores or whatever, and her quote unquote friends pull up and they're like, "Hey, ditch," or whatever, and her boyfriend's with them, and her sister's there, and she's like, "You should really like stay away from them," but she's essentially like the token with them. Like they're all like these super rich white kids, and so she's like, just like, she's like, the next time, like, I'll bring you something, because they give her like their hand me downs and stuff like that. Like she sold a purse for like $2,000 from one of them, just like crazy stuff. And like she goes with them, and like they call her some like Asian nickname because they literally don't care, and they're like, "Oh, like I don't even remember what it was, but like it's derogatory essentially because it's like
Yeah.
that's not my name." And then I can't remember what they said, but they said something about General So's, and I was like, okay. Um, so they decide, again, as teens, they're like, "We're gonna go break into the Japanese gardens." And initially I was like, "Yeah, no, like they can afford to do that. Like you can't." She's like not poor, but like she's not rich, and like they can afford to like pay a lawyer, or they'll probably just buy their way out of it, or whatever it is. So she goes, and they get in there, and the group kind of breaks off. She goes with her boyfriend. They're by this temple. His name is Jacob, and he's like trying to force her to have sex with him. And like she's like, "No, quit." And he's like, "No, you quit stopping me." gross. And literally she starts fighting him and he hits her back. And he's like calling her names. And then like they're by this temple, so they hear this noise, and so she like knees him or like kicks him in the balls and like runs and hides in the woods. So like she's hiding and they look for her for a little bit, but then the group just like leaves her there. So she gets like an Uber home. So she's like at home, she goes to the bathroom, she's like crying, and her sister like is knocking and she's like, "Oh, how were your friends?" And she's like, "They were fine," like trying to pretend, but her sister ends up getting in there seeing like that she's obviously distraught. And we switch over to Jacob's POV because he must have dropped his phone in the scuffle. Scumbag. So he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go back." And he says, "Well, like her sister let me do it last year." So he did this whole thing, and her sister has just never. Her sister has always told her to like watch out for him. He's a scumbag, but never said, which she should have, never said, yeah, he also did this to me. Like, and because she wouldn't even probably have kind of dated him if he wouldn't like known. Like, so she should
Right.
have told her that, but she doesn't tell her anything. So he did the same thing to Summer, but apparently him and Summer were like actually really dating, and him and Sophie are like just kind of talking or whatever. So he goes and he's by the temple and he hears a noise and he thinks it's Sophie, like because she's still in the like in here or whatever. But it's like this woman. I all I could see was the Grudge.
Yeah. Same.
But like it's like a woman and like she has like really long hair and she has like a white robe and she's like, "Oh, that's not." He's like, "That's not Sophie." And then Jacob doesn't show up at school the next day. So Summer starts being like weird and she's like sneaking out. She's like not around as much. Her hair looks a mess. Like I was like, "Oh, clocked it." And so then all of a sudden, Sophie's friends show up and they look terrible. And they basically are like, one of the people from their group, Sean, is dead. And they said that literally they were in the gardens and this thing snapped his neck in front of them. Sophie's like, "Yeah, you guys are on drugs." Like, and they're like, "No, we're actually not using right now. Like, this really happened." And she's like, "Is this about Jacob?" And like, they asked, like, "Did he basically rape you?" And they like basically knew that he was going to try to do that, but they didn't know like exactly the whole like details or whatever. And they're like, "This is all his fault. Like, he's cursed us." So one of them pulls out all this like research on this woman, and apparently there was a girl who was raped and killed, and her dad had built that temple and the gardens for her, and now they are seeing her everywhere. And then they also tell her about what happened with Summer, and she's like, "Get out, like just get away from here or whatever." And they're like, "But you're Chinese or Japanese, you can fix this." They're like, "You're Japanese. It's a Japanese ghost, like you can fix it." And she's like, "What the heck?" And literally, like they're at her house when they tell her this. They like break her mirror because they see her, and so she's like, "You know what? I'm gonna play with you guys." And she's like, "My dad has this sword at his like restaurant, and it can kill the ghost, like whatever." So they go and get it because she's not believing any of this. But they go back to the gardens, and they literally see like the temple has like blood everywhere. Jacob's phone is there, and they all see like this ghost, and they literally push Sophie down because they're like, "Kill it," and she's like, "I was lying. Like this sword doesn't do anything." And they push her down and they run and they get in the car and just leave her. And the like Japanese ghost lady like tracks them down in the car, literally like breaks the window, kills them. One of the girls never like wears her seatbelt, so of course she goes like flying out and she dies. And then like the ghost lady thing starts walking back towards Sophie and she's like, "Great, I'm gonna die," but it just turns into Summer, her sister, and she says that whenever Jacob did that last year, she was like possessed kind of by this lady. So that was that one. And I really liked it.
I really like this one too. I give this one a 5 stars.
Yeah.
I loved it. The whole eat the rich, destroy the entitled douchebag that has been going around sexually assaulting girls. I love that the monster, her protector, ended up being her sister too.
Yeah.
I hate that, obviously that happened to them, but I loved the way that it turned out.
Yeah.
Yeah, felt it felt justified.
I was like, it's satisfying. I like that. Yeah, I gave it a 5 too. I enjoyed that one too. I was like, yes, I'm a fan. Okay, the next one is Best Served Cold by H.E. Edgmon. This is Native Americans. And it starts with Kai. Kai is the younger brother. There's kind of, it's mostly Kai in this one, but he also has a brother, EJ, who's older. And Kai's like thinking how he always wanted like green eyes. He has like traditional, no, traditional, but like brown eyes, as like most Native Americans do. Uh, but him and his brother EJ are kind of like getting reacquainted with like the reservation and everything. Like their parents, for whatever reason, don't really do that. They're not traditional in that sense. But him and his brother have like kind of like garnered a community. They're getting back with that. So he goes, he's still in high school, his brother's graduated. So he goes to visit his brother on the reservation, and his brother has this friend, Isaac. And he's like, I don't know if they're just friends. They kind of seem like they could be more, like they're closer than friends. And Isaac is like very white, as in like looks like pro-nationalist white, as in like we think he might murder us and be racist white, but he like isn't. Like he comes off like he's very like, I don't know, educated, but like very interested and intrigued and like respectful about everything. So he like is there for the weekend. He has to go home, and he, goes to go home, and he keeps running out of gas. So he gets gas, and like he like is driving again, and his gas light keeps coming on, and he's like, okay, I should have like 30 more miles, something like that. And like, his car just completely shuts off. So he's like, well, I know, like they say, like you shouldn't be out here in the dark, like things. I was like, smart, smart. Things can come and get you. So he like just stays in his car. So he falls asleep, and he wakes up, and he thinks there's like a demon at the window, but it's just Isaac and those green eyes. And Isaac is like, what are you doing here? He's like, Isaac is a hunter, and so he's like, I got an alert to like come into work or whatever, and I happen to pass you. And he's like, basically like the best time to hunt is like in the night or something like that. So he goes with Isaac, and he gets in the car, and he's like, this seems weird. And he's like, oh, I left my phone in the car. But Isaac's like, oh, you're not going to need it where you're going. And he's like, what? But he's like, oh, like because the reservation doesn't have like signal. No, go with your gut feeling. And then he's like, I'm starving. So Isaac's like, oh, I brought you like food or whatever. He has like popcorn and like drinks or whatever. So Kai drinks and eats the popcorn. He starts getting so sleepy. He's like, I don't ever go to bed at this time. Like, I don't even know why I'm sleepy. And Isaac starts talking about Kai, and he's like, or no, Isaac starts talking about EJ. He's like, yeah, and your brother's like repulsive, and like I never would have even dealt with him. But then if I hadn't, I wouldn't have met you. And he like looks up, and like Isaac is speeding down like this road, and he's like speeding down the road, but like looking at Kai like the whole time. Like he's like staring right at Kai. Um, do I have the brothers backwards? Is it EJ? Maybe I have them backwards. I think Kai is the brother that was with Isaac, and EJ is the one that gets.
No, Kai, you had it right. Kai is the main character.
Okay, I just have my notes backwards. Okay, yeah. So all right. So he passes out, and he wakes up, and he's like essentially in a meat locker freezer. And like there's hooks hanging, it's freezing. He sees the door open because Isaac comes in, and it's like a regular house out there, like a lodge. And basically he's like, are you going to like rape me? And Isaac's like, no, that's disgusting. Because I'm going to eat you. I would have preferred the rape. So basically, he like comes in, and he cuts off Kai's finger. And then he wakes up to Isaac literally, he's eating his finger like a chicken bone, like shucking the meat off of it. Oh my god. Knowing that you're eating human whatever is gross, but knowing that you're eating my finger would absolutely send me into orbit. Then he cuts off, like, he keeps passing out, and he keeps waking up missing body parts. He cuts off part of his leg. And then Isaac also admits, like, the reason that the car messed up is because he messed with it. Because he was like, no one was paying attention to me at the reservation. So, like, I had time to sneak off and mess with your gas tank. Then he wakes up, and his ear is gone. So then one day Isaac comes in, and he's like, hey, our time's up. Like, your brother keeps coming around here crying. And Kai had thought that he heard like his brother crying about him, but he thought he was tripping. But like, no, his brother keeps coming to the cabin and like crying to Isaac about how his brother's missing, not knowing his brother is like hiding behind the walls in this freezer. And he's like, great, like I could have just like called out for him. Maybe he would have heard me. Isaac is like, well, I'm gonna miss you. But he's like, okay, I'm not dying. So he takes one of those hooks, and he like stabs Isaac with it. And he's like, okay, good. So he's like, I'm gonna be able to get out of here. He's like, surely, like my brother's gonna come because he comes here all the time. But that doesn't happen. His brother doesn't come for a long time, and now he's like stuck in the freezer with Isaac's body. Isaac was like essentially like almost like a skin walker or something. I don't know. He wasn't human, whatever he was. And whatever it was inside of him, like is like curled up in the corner of the freezer. And then he like, so days are going by, and then he wakes up and he's eating Isaac's body. Because he's starving, like he's running out of time. And finally his brother shows up and Isaac's body's gone. And he's like, did I eat his entire body? And his brother literally like touches him and like his skin burns. It's so uncomfortable. And now he knows like what Isaac meant when he was like repulsed by his brother. So he's saved, but a little too late.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this one. This one was a 5-star for me. My skin was crawling, like
Ugh.
the majority of it. I had chills. Yeah, no, it was really eerie. The ending was devastating.
I know. You're
But
like,
at the same time, like, yes, such a good ending. Definitely, this is one I will not forget anytime soon. I thoroughly enjoyed this one.
he's not going to be any good use though. Like he doesn't have half of his body parts. Like how is he going to even hunt down other people to eat because he's like got half of his body's gone? I don't know. Ugh. Yeah, I gave this one a 4, but I did like it too. Yeah, it was cannibalism. Okay, the next one is The Protege by Lamar Giles. We have lots of sibling and lots of brothers. This one is Troy and Darius. Troy is like the main brother in this one. Troy's the younger brother. It's always the younger one too. So their parents are on vacation for their honeymoon, so they're like staying at home. You know, they have to answer when they call, don't answer the door, all this stuff. Well, Troy is like kind of awkward, but his next door neighbor is a magician. He's Mr. Meridian, and he's kind of like taken him under his wing. So he's like practicing all these things. And one day Mr. Meridian comes and he's like, hey, gotta go to this magic store, like at the mall or whatever. If my package comes, can you sign for it? And he's like, sure. Shuts the door. Immediately, there's a knock, and then there's like this box, and he's like, okay. So the box, like he takes the box in. That night, they have like really weird dreams. And actually, Troy and Darius have the same dream about a woman being like tied up and like body parts being taken from her, and they're like, that was weird. So also that night, the like place where Mr. Meridian went was like a crime scene, and he's like texting Mr. Meridian because he's like, why have you not come to get your stuff? And someone texts him back from the number and is like, who is this? And he's like, I know that Mr. Meridian had my number. And they're like, you might want to use a Ouija board to contact him. Let me know where you and my package are. And then they send him a picture of a gutted Mr. Meridian, which Darius is like, oh, that's an animal. But like Troy knows that that is Mr. Meridian. So he is no longer with us. So then like the next day, like after the dreams, they wake up. The news is like there's a body missing, which it's Mr. Meridian's body. It's missing from the scene. The box is being very weird. It is thumping itself up against the wall. So Darius is like, is that an animal? And he's like, I don't think so. They open it. It's a jawbone and 2 teeth. Why would you have me get this package? Don't ever ask me to get your package. I didn't sign up for this. So as they're opening it, there's someone knocking at the door, and Darius, older brother, is like, don't answer it. But Troy is so like desperate for Mr. Meridian to show up that he just opens the door, and there's a man there, like, oh, I'm a detective, and he's like, I know this is not a detective because he saw this man in the dream of the people like dismembering that lady. So he's like, no, thank you. He tries to shut the door. The man uses magic and like literally knocks the door open. He lets like all these people in with him, which were all in the dream, and they kill Darius. They literally like crush his chest with magic. He's gone. Whoop. And they're like, hey, so we want our stuff. So the jawbone like comes like jumping out of the air and it goes next door to Mr. Meridian's house. So they're like, you're the protege? Like they can like smell him on him. So they're like, we need you to go next door. So they like look and there's like wards all over Mr. Meridian's house and Darius or Troy can get through. So he gets through and he like lets go of the man's hand, which like cuts his like one of the guy's hand off. So they like start using magic to like take down all the wards, and he's like trying to figure out what to do. And he goes in the basement, and there's a naked woman in a coffin, like all stitched together, which made me think of Beetlejuice, like the new one. Did
I've
you
not
see?
seen that one yet.
Oh, well, there's like a woman in there who's like all like stitched together, or like Sally, basically. And she's like basically like, release me. And at the same time, the people like they come down, they're like, we're gonna kill you, like slower than your brother, all this stuff. But he like lets go of the jawbone and it goes back to the lady. So then like this like light flashes, and like the members in the group are like, please, no, don't hurt us. But like one lady literally, she like skins her, like her skin just like peels off. I was like, oh my gosh. And then another, like one of the guys tries to like run, and she literally like opens a portal, and he just like falls through like a portal. And basically like the leader's like, wow, like he actually did it. He put all your body parts back together. And then like the woman like disappears for a moment, and Troy's like, oh, like you left me with him? And so the guy's like, I'm gonna kill you. But she like reappears, and the leader, like the guy doesn't see her. So Troy kind of like distracts him because he's like trying to show him the one magic trick that he knows. But the lady literally like shows up behind him. She like turns this guy's body into like a bunch of blisters, but they're like all of his face. So like he has like little faces of himself like all over, and then they just start like screaming all at once, and then she just like dices him up into cubes. I don't know. And then she like makes Troy like fall asleep. So then he wakes up and he's in his room, and she's like dressed in like his mom's clothes. And he's like, okay, like, well, you came back to life. Can you like bring my brother back? And she's like, no, like I wasn't dead. I was just dismembered, which is the same thing. But she's like, I can't like bring like your human brother back or whatever. But she's basically like, you have like a gift, and also now that you have my scent on you, like they're probably gonna hunt you down. So like, would you like to come with me, because they're probably gonna come after your family, or you can learn how to protect them. So he agrees, like as his mom is calling, and that's how it ended. So I like this one too. I give that one a 4 as well.
I like this one. Yeah, I would probably say 4.5. It was I don't know. It was good. I was very upset that the brother died. I hate when
No, and it was just like bloop.
loving siblings die.
Yeah, and like he did nothing. Like he wasn't like not like nothing. He just, and it's just like boop, like
Yep.
chest just caved in, just died. And then they're gonna come
Yeah.
home and find their son like that. That's so
And then other son missing.
missing. Yeah, neighbor missing, dead or whatever. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know. That sucks.
I
Okay.
couldn't imagine.
The next one is Docile Girls by Chloe Gong. This one, the main character is Adelaide, and she is Asian American. She's Asian American, yes. And basically, she's been like avoiding going to this like dance committee meeting because her boyfriend broke up with her. And when he broke up with her, it's kind of like the other one, the Golden Dragon, where she was like friends with all like these rich white kids. And when her boyfriend broke up with her, they all like broke up with her. And they're not even, not only are they not friends with her anymore, they're like teasing and taunting her. And they're all on the committee. So she goes to the committee, and there's also like 2 other students there, and it's in like the gymnasium, which is like kind of separate from the school but not. And so she was supposed to get the keys to like lock it up, but supposedly another student has the keys. So they go in there, like they're working whatever, and someone starts screaming, and they look up, and like one of them is literally like cut in half, like head down, split in half. Okay. And so they all immediately start like blaming each other. And then they find another girl whose head is cut off because there was like a razor wire. Then someone gets stabbed, they're screaming. Then like one girl is like being attacked by this guy who ends up with a knife. And so Adelaide tries to stop him, and she hits him with the confetti machine, which is on, and literally like slices him up. So she killed somebody. Then they start to hear sirens, so they're like, okay, good, like the police are gonna come, and because they're locked in, they can't get out. They don't. No one knows where the keys are, and someone's in here killing everybody. So then, like, the lights keep going on and off. So the lights go off, and like this girl gets stabbed in the head. Then the lights go off again, and like one boy's like intestines are out. So like people are just dying all over the place. The ones who are remaining are like still accusing each other. And like her ex is like, he's still alive, and he's like, I think it's so and so. And she's like, why don't you think it's me? He's like, because you can't do this. And she's like, why not? You don't think I'm like, and I'm like, oh, you're crazy. You're a psychopath. Okay. I'm all for that. And so then he like he tries to like lunge for the knife, but she gets it and she literally like cuts his throat. So then it's just her and this other girl left who is Elaine. And it turns out that Elaine was the one who started all this murderous activity in here, and Elaine also has the keys. And so she has like no remorse, and she's like, okay, what's up? And she's like basically like, they're white. And they've been like terrible to us. She's like, I don't care. And she says that one of the guys, her mom was his like nanny, and they were like terrible to her. And she like basically she triggered, like she locked the gym up, triggered the alarm, knowing that like the police would come. And she's like, you killed him, and I wanted him to be like the suspect. So they decide to get together. They like open the doors to like go in the school, and then they like sit there like two helpless like maidens as the police come, and they're like, the intruder, he's escaping. And they get off.
This one about 4 stars. I liked it, especially the twist. I was not expecting them both to be
Psychos.
yeah. But yeah, no, overall I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I give it like a 3.5. I don't know if maybe I was missing or things happen fast. I was just like, oh, okay. There's not really like a reason. Like, I was just like, okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think that's the biggest reason why I didn't rate it higher. Um I guess I'm not the biggest killing just to kill.
yeah.
Like there's not really a reason why. Just
Yeah. I was like, I don't know, like the full on murder. And I mean, you know.
if like tell me that like I don't know, they did a horrible hazing thing on you
Yeah.
and it left you like emotionally scarred or something, but just
Yeah, the
to do it.
killing just to kill. I was like, nah, I mean, okay. Okay.
You do you, I guess.
All right. The next one is Grey Grove by Alexis Henderson. I really like this one. Just because it's like it gave me like traditional slasher, like stupid vibes. Like this was dumb, but like
Yeah.
good. So this one is there's two girls, Caitlin and Rumi. Caitlin's white. Rumi, I don't know if it ever says what she is. But they are doing a podcast, which that's great. And they they like okay, so there's a guy who goes like missing or went like years ago, and another guy like his supposed murder was kind of pinned on him. He wasn't imprisoned for the murder, but essentially he was. Like they came up with another crime to hold him. And so like that guy has also now like spent the rest of his life and died like a couple weeks ago in prison. So they decide, which I would never agree to this, to go to the site of the crime and hold a seance to try to reach out to the one who was supposedly killed and body was never found. So it's also a plantation where they're doing this at.
Yeah.
I'm not participating on any level of this. I don't want to do any part of this. No, 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 no. So let's see. So they go in, they have all their equipment, and they have like, you know, like the sound equipment for like spirits. It's called a spirit box. Again, I don't want to hear the sounds. I don't want to know. I'm not going to go there, but I also don't want to know that the spirits are with me. I don't want to hear them. So there's that. So like they get there and like Caitlin is really like dismissive of the fact that William is like always proclaimed his innocence. He's like, I did not kill that man. Something else killed him. And like, this was pinned on me. And like, Caitlin's like telling Rumi, like, you're making it like, what was the other guy's? The guy who went missing or was killed or whatever, his name is Kyle. And she's like, you're making him like to be the bad guy. He's the victim. And Rumi's like, well, he was like a staunch racist. So he wasn't a good guy. So there's that. So they like kind of start arguing, and Rumi and Caitlin have been like best friends for like a few years. Caitlin moved to this area like a few years ago, but it seems like Caitlin kind of just uses Rumi for like the podcast, for the editing, and to kind of like get her to where she wants to be. But their actual friendship has kind of like fizzled out. So Rumi kind of just like snaps at Caitlin and she's like, "You're just doing this whole thing for views." And Caitlin basically snaps back at her and was like, "So are you," which is kind of true too. I mean, Rumi does what she wants the notoriety for doing this. That's why they do the podcast. So Rumi just says to Caitlin, like, "You know what? You're right. I quit." So Caitlin snatches the camera from Rumi, but she like snatches it so hard that Rumi literally falls, hits her head, and she's like, "Great, like our friendship is just like over. Like this is the end of it." So they had like set up like a whole seance. Like there was candles and like the salt ring and like all that stuff. So as this happens, like the candles go out, there's wind, it like blows the salt, and there's like a marsh on the plantation, which is what William said happened to Kyle, that something dragged him into the marsh. So the marsh starts boiling and the house is literally shaking. And Rumi's like, "There's something here, let's run." And there's literally like a creature coming out of the marsh. But Caitlin is not running. She's like, "I'm just gonna record. I'm gonna be famous. Like, I'm gonna record this." And so the demon gets her and drags her into the marsh as she deserved. And then everything goes quiet and the demon is satisfied. Yeah. So then we go to like 6 years later. Of course, Rumi was like kind of like speculated to be like a murderer. The same whole thing happens again. And she like never once made a statement, an interview, anything about it. They end up saying that they found like an alligator den nearby. So they end up saying that Caitlin just got ate by an alligator. They do find the camera, but it was like ruined. And so she decides to do one final podcast episode and tell her story. So that is how that ended.
I liked this one. I rated it 4.5. I'd say it's probably between 4 to 4.5 for me, and it's just because I wish that there was more.
Yeah.
Which I get, they're anthologies, but I just wish there was a little more because it just happened so quickly.
Yeah, I do wish there was more. I did a 4.5 too, but yeah, I wish there was more, like, or the pod. I don't know, something. I wish there was something else, but I do like it. And I'm like, I would not be participating in any other. I'm not going. I'm not going to any abandoned anything at night. I'm not going to a plantation. I don't want to hear spirits. I'm never participating in a seance. I'm not doing any of that. So count me out. I'm a chicken. Well, no, I have to take that back. Keely did say that she gets to go do a ghost tour or whatever, and that I can come. And I said that I may participate, and then I'll be terrified. Okay, and the next one, I really like the next one, and I also really like this author, so.
Same. I love Tiffany D. Jackson, and this one is one of my favorites as well.
I love this one. So this one is, I feel like the notes can't do it enough justice, but this one's called Everything's Coming Up Roses by Tiffany D. Jackson, who wrote Monday's Not Coming, which we love. So this is from Lisa, and it's written as journal entries, and Lisa is a bona fide psychopath.
Yes.
She's insane. So Lisa lives with her grandma. Starts out, she's working at Home Depot. She's like, "I don't like my manager, but I'm not going to say anything. I don't want people to think I'm losing control." So obviously, like, there's some kind of like backstory with Lisa's mental. Then she's like always talking about how she wants to do this garden. She's got this garden in her backyard. She's always gardening. She's going to buy stuff from her work check to plant the roses. And she then, like, she immediately starts getting weird. She goes to her psychiatrist's house and he's like, "Never come here again. What is wrong with you?" She does not understand boundaries at all. She also got this job at Home Depot because she is stalking this guy named Lamar, and it's near his job. And she's like, "What? I mean, and I didn't really mean to cut like his girlfriend's hair off with, I just carry pruning scissors with me everywhere I go." So like, there's that. Then she buys a new shovel, and her grandma made her burn the last. Okay. Then Lamar freaks out because he sees her because she's obviously violating a protective order. And then she starts working more so she can keep up with Lamar, and she's getting mad at work because they're like accusing her of stuff. And her grandma finds her pill bottle empty because she's gotten rid of all of the pills. And she's like, I don't like them; they make me feel bad. Then she keeps she keeps working in the garden, and her grandma cannot get a hold of her doctor. And then the police show up and they're looking for her psychiatrist, her doctor. And she's like, I don't know. Like, we have a Zoom like every week. I don't know where he is. I don't know. But they're like, he's missing. She's like, I hope his wife and kids are okay. And then she's talking about how there's so many ways to kill someone with the stuff at Home Depot. And then there's so many ways to dispose of their body with the stuff at Home Depot. And then her grandma is so sad because Lisa wants to plant more roses, and she's begging her to please don't plant any more roses. And then Lisa breaks into Lamar's room and falls asleep in his bed with pruning shears and goes to jail. And then her boss confronts her for being a no call, no show, and she cuts him up with shears and an axe. And her grandma's like, are you going to plant me too? Are you going to kill me too? And she's like, no, I'm not. Why would I do that? And she thinks like, because her grandma's like wanted to move. And she's like, maybe we can move and I can have a new garden. Maybe I can have one in the front yard. And then we jump ahead a little bit and the house ends up getting demolished and they find 10 bodies and they find her journal buried under the roses. And they track her down and she's 31 now. She lives in Florida and she is the assistant manager at Home Depot. 5 stars.
So, so I read the art copy, so I'm not sure if there's any like differences between them two. So in yours, did it say that when they found human remains, that they also found the remains of her grandma?
Okay, I was confused. So I was like, because yeah, and it was
Okay.
like that's how they found the journal, and I was like, oh, so she did kill her grandma. I was like,
And
maybe
I'm
she was
like-
just buried there, but no, okay.
I'm like wondering if she killed her grandma before or after all this happened and was just kind of like hallucinating her interaction with her grandma. I don't know.
I don't know.
This was 5 stars for me.
It was really good.
It was so good, and I love that it was told in letters. Well, in her journal. It was really good. Like there's something about Tiffany D. Jackson, because her stuff is like crack.
Yeah, it's really good. And that summary does not do it justice. Like it's the way, and like I listened to it to the audiobook, like just listening to it is really also, each narrator's different. I wonder if the author narrated it. I didn't even think about that. She's cuckoo, and I loved it. So I loved it. All right, this next one is Heaven, and I don't know if I can pronounce this right. It's by Adiba. I'm not gonna try and pronounce the last name. Nope.
Jaigirdar? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either. But it's called Heaven. So essentially, Heaven is like a safe place. And yeah, so and I don't. What's this character's name? Because I was like, again, I'm listening to the audiobook. It's like Esha or
Ashal.
Ashal. That's what it was. Okay, Ashal. So Ashal is like depressed because I'm assuming it's her girlfriend, Juliet, is missing, and her coworker, Derek, is like, hey, like it's been like a week. They tell us, we have to clean out our apartment or they're gonna get rid of her stuff. So they clean it out and she finds a picture on the back. It says to come north, basically. And she's like, okay, maybe I can find her there. Because why would Juliet just go missing? So heaven essentially, it's like post-apocalyptic world or whatever. And outside of there, like outside of heaven, they have to wear like protective gear. And there's like these monsters called the Sunken. But inside of there, that's where they were all like placed and they're safe and all these things. So she's like, okay, well, I'm going to go look. And her and Derek work together. They go outside of heaven and they wear the suits and they like basically kill any like monster that they find. Um, so she asks him and he agrees. And so they go and they like go farther north than they've ever gone. And she finds Juliet's body and she's dead. She's drowned. And she finds a woman who has like no protective gear on, but she's also not sick or anything that they've ever told her. And so the lady's basically like, I'm a scientist or whatever. And she's mad because she's like, are you using her body as bait? And she's like, everything you know about heaven, the lady is like telling her, everything you know about heaven is wrong. They locked my people out. And she's like, no, like they said that they didn't find anybody else. And she's like, that's not true. Like they wouldn't let us in. We couldn't afford to pay. And she's like, well, I didn't pay to be there. And she's like, well, your parents did or whatever. But she's basically like finding out that everything that she knows about heaven is a lie. And then one of those sunken creatures pops out, takes Juliet's body and runs off. So she's like distraught because she was like, I was going to burn her so she wouldn't turn into one of these monsters. So she decides to go back and she goes back and she finds Derek. She goes back to heaven and she talks to her trainer. And her trainer basically tells her to stop digging where she shouldn't dig, like whatever. But her trainer's basically like, stop digging. And she's like, maybe we can get you some therapy, like whatever. She's like, what? So she's like, I'm going to go back and find that research lady or whatever. So she goes back and she finds one of the sunken, like she goes out by herself this time and it's Juliet. And she's like, but she looks nothing like herself. But Juliet basically tells her like, take off your protective equipment. And when she does, she looks perfectly normal. And she basically tells her that everything that they know is a lie, that the suit and the goggles makes the people look weird, but they're not. And she said that I had to die my first death so that I could live with the other humans or whatever. And they live underwater. Like they adapted so that they could live underwater because they weren't allowed into heaven. And she's like, there is no toxic atmosphere. The water is not toxic. Everything is fine. So she's like, you should join me. And so she's like, whatever it is. She's like, I'm gonna go back and like say my goodbyes and then I'm gonna join you. So she goes back, she runs into Derek, and Derek's like, yeah, no, like we gotta get you some help. You're crazy. He doesn't believe her. And so she's like, I'm gonna show you. And she pushes him down and kills him. And she's like, this is his first death. So then she starts throwing grenades at like all of the gates so that like no one is like locked into heaven anymore. And then somehow it doesn't say how she does her first death as well. So she wakes up and she's in the new place. She's underwater and she's like, Juliet's there and she's like, where is Derek? And she's like, the people of heaven only get one death. She's like, I made a deal so that I could live here and so that you could, but basically he died for nothing. The end.
I like this one. 4.5. I wasn't sure about it at first, but because this one is, I feel like feels more sci-fi-ish. And I'm not the biggest like sci-fi fan, which I wouldn't necessarily say that this is sci-fi, but it has like some of the
really
feels of it.
Like, yeah, I think it's more like a little sci-fi, I could say.
Yeah. But I really ended up liking it. Yeah, it was good.
I gave it a 3.5. I didn't like it as much as some of the other ones, but I didn't like dislike it. It just sucks. Like you killed him for nothing. It's just like, oh, I'm gonna show you, and now I wonder, is he white or is Juliet white? It doesn't. I don't know that it says, because she's technically the first death, but I don't know. But I don't know that she really counts because she was kind of dead pre-book. So I wonder if he is. Okay. This next one I was a little confused about, but I do like it. I'm intrigued. So this one is Break Through Our Skin by Naseem Jamnia, I believe. So I don't know. I'm just going to say they, because I don't even know if it really gives pronouns in here, but they are transgender, and they are not able to come out to their family, or at least they don't feel like they're able to come out to their family about.
So it does say I'm transgender. I'm non-binary. So
Okay,
yeah, they.
okay, cool. So so, and I don't know. Did it say like what they like presenting? Is it male or female? I didn't know if it ever. I don't couldn't remember like in the book when they were talking to other people if they like referred to them as he or she. Okay. I don't even know what's the name. I don't even have this person's name actually. Does it ever give their name? I think it does. I think the parents talk to them. I don't think I wrote it down.
I keep seeing Fars. You
Fars.
can call me Fars.
Okay. I'm not really sure. Fariz? Far. I'm trying to think. I listened to the audiobook, but now I just can't remember. Hmm.
Because it says you can call me Farz. I haven't spoken my real name aloud to anyone. Its weight feels right on my tongue. That's Faye. Rezi.
Okay, so yeah, for this character, I'm just probably gonna say the pronouns. So they are. I don't know if they're like an archaeologist, but they work with archaeologists. And is this a mummy? It's like a sarcophagus. I just put mummy because that's like the easiest thing I could think of in my mind to like describe what this is. Essentially, it's like a mummy, and there's like they're like cataloging things about the sarcophagus and mummy, all this stuff, whatever. And the bosses suck because they are basically like, we don't know if this is a female or male. Like, research has shown that, pelvic sizes differ based on ethnicity and all those things. And the boss is basically like, yeah, and your thoughts on gender, like essentially it was like the reason, like the way you think about that is why I can't like support you for like a letter of recommendation. So all throughout this day, like they like cut their hand, and then after that, like weird stuff starts happening. Like they start hearing this voice in their head, and so after this whole like thing with the boss and the recommendation, the boss also is like, "Oh, like aren't you guys like trans or not our main character, but aren't they considered like transvestites? Like they're very derogatory, like just disgusting." So the voice that they've been hearing all day is basically like, I can help you, but like I need a human host. You have to like sacrifice yourself to me. So he or they stick their hand in the like sarcophagus, and it's a really weird description of it because I was trying to like visualize it, but essentially they like pull out an eye, and then like and a spot opens up on their head, and they like stick in like a third eye. That's what you got from that? Did you get that? Because that's what I got from it. Um, and then they also like grow like all these legs and like wings and become this monstrous thing. I need a visual. And so they pick up their boss and literally like start like pulling him apart and eating him. And then their parents come in and they like kind of shift back into their human form, but feel like so much like guilt and shame for like being seen like this. But their parents are like, it's okay, like it's fine, let's get you like cleaned up and dressed. And I think the dad takes care of the body of the boss. And they come back and the dad's like, I know it might be wrong, but you're my child and that's all I care about. And so they're finally like, I'm going to tell you. And they're basically like, hey, I'm transgendered, like all these things. And the parents say, we know. We saw you researching it on the computer and we're okay with it. And that's kind of how that ends. I definitely need visual. I was confused. I get the underlying, but I was confused.
Yeah, I ended up rating this one 2 stars just because I don't understand anything that happened.
Yeah, I was confused.
I was thoroughly, I don't know, thoroughly confused. There was a ton of lead up and then
Very quick.
yeah, and not yeah, I don't know. It was confusing for me.
Yeah, this was the other one that I was like, I gave it a 2.5 also. So yeah, I don't know that I disliked it. I just am confused. I was confused throughout it, and this was one I had to go back and I was still confused. So, um, yeah, that one needs just some development to it. Okay, we have three more. The next one is Wasp by Mark Oshiro. And this is Nina. Nina is Latina.
Mm-hmm.
And she lives like I think they live in Brooklyn. They live in New York. Her mom and her grandma, but her grandma's in the hospital. And basically, she like their heat is broken, their like boiler's broken, and there is this man, Mister Something. I feel like I put it down there. Anyways, their neighbor is trying to gentrify and like buy up the whole neighborhood. So he's bought like all the places next to them. He lives next to them, and he basically somehow gets in the hospital and tricks the grandma into like giving over the mortgage and the deed to him. But it's not exactly legal. So like the mom's kind of like in a fight with the guy in court or whatever. But he is also like anytime like anything like goes wrong at the house, he's trying to like report it or something to like get this house from them. And he has a son who is disgusting, and his son came over and broke out like the window in the basement. So like that's like something new. So the mom's like, just make sure like the guy doesn't find out about it or whatever. And so like Nina is like dealing with that, and she's like injured. She's got a bandage on her hand. Hopkins, that's the guy's name. So he's like outside snooping around as she's like trying to clean up the basement. And he like she's down there and he like leans down and he's like calling out for his son Tim, and he's like, I see you in there, like where's my son? He never came back this morning. And she's like, yeah, I don't know. So her mom is basically like, I have to go to the hospital because your grandma is trying to like leave AMA basically, and we both can't go because if they leave the house like empty, then like Mr. Hopkins can get in and try to take it from us. So the mom goes to the hospital, Nina stays home, and she falls asleep. And she wakes up around midnight, and basically Hopkins is there again, and he's trying to like get in. And so she like sees him like messing around the basement window, so she decides to go upstairs so she can record him because she's like, okay, we can use this in court. Oh my, this pissed me off so bad. She's recording him and literally goes to pull her hand back in, but her bandaged hand gets caught, and she drops the phone on him. She gets him recorded. He's like laying on his back trying to like get in this window, and she drops it like on his chest. Bro. So he's like pissed, and he's like, I know you're in there by yourself. Like, where's my son? I sent him over here today. He never came back. Where is he? And so he literally starts like rattling all the windows, and essentially he starts breaking down the back door. He starts like slamming into the back door. She doesn't know what to do. She can't call anyone because he has her phone, and he ends up like stepping on her phone. He ends up stepping on her phone and like destroying it. So, but she's like, he cannot have this. This is our ancestral home. And she mentions like what they found beneath the foundation. And I'm like, this is the one that gave me the handyman method. The last one did too a little bit, but this one is the one that made me first think about it. Okay, so he ends up breaking into the house, and she's like, I'm gonna do what my mom wouldn't do, basically. And she's like, okay, fine. He's in the basement. He's like, fine, take me down there. So she takes him to the basement, and she notices she forgot to clean up Tim's shoe. So Tim really was here, and his shoe is down there covered in blood. So she's like, okay. So she opens this like wooden door, and she's like, he's in there. And so like Hopkins is like looking in there, and it's just like dark and doesn't see anything. And she unwraps her hand, and her pinky is missing. So she lost a whole finger. So she's like, I'm gonna have to sacrifice another finger. And she kicks him into this like dark, and she's like, cuts off her ring finger because she's like, do I want two pinkies missing or one whole hand? She's like, I want one whole hand. So she's like, I cut off my ring finger. So now she's got three fingers. And she like cuts it off, throws it in there with him. He's like, let me out, like crying. And she's like, I'm going to show you what happened to your son. And then she just like thinks of like what terrible things she wants to happen to him. And the house does it. So she like thinks of like a giant hornet wasp thing. And it like burst out of her finger. And it just starts stabbing him like all over until he dies. And her mom comes in as this is happening, and she's like, first she's like, what have you done? But then she looks and she says, my mom is also missing the same 2 fingers. So her mom has also had to do this. So in order for the house to like do stuff for them, they have to sacrifice a part of themselves. And she tells her mom what happened as well as what she did to Tim, which that time she killed him with a python. And they save the house. So.
This
Ugh.
was a 5-star for me. Like most of them were, but break-ins are scary, and potentially losing your home is scary too.
And you're just gonna steal it from us. Like, that's just, ugh.
Right. I really like this one. Girls gotta do what a girl's gotta do.
Ugh, I could not cut off my finger. I don't think I can do it.
No, I could not either. Oh my gosh.
I don't think I could do it. I don't think I can do it. Twice in one day. She's like, the first time she cut it like slanted, so like, like no, thank you. But yeah, I give this a 4.5. I like that one. Okay, the last 2 I really love. So the second to last one is called Hell. I don't know. This says Hell is Other Demons. Is that what it is? Did I write that down right?
Yes.
Okay. This one is Hell is Other Demons by Karen Strong. So Evelyn is with Ivy, who is her friend, and Ivy's boyfriend. What's his name? I wrote his name down somewhere. I thought I wrote his
name.
Brett, yes. Ivy's boyfriend, Brett, who is white. And they're black, I believe. And Brett wants to summon a demon. Again, I'm not participating in this. I don't want to summon anybody. I definitely don't want to summon a demon.
No.
A demon? We're going to just jump past ghosts to straight demon? She's like, that's normal. He just comes up with ideas and like wants to do them. A demon? Okay.
No, thank you.
I'm not doing that. So Evelyn tells Ivy this is a dumb idea. Also, Ivy's dad is a pastor. You know good and well that you are on any business playing around with summoning anything, let alone a demon. And he's like a Southern Baptist pastor. Like, that's like what I got from it. So actually, Evelyn is like out. She's a lesbian. And Ivy essentially at least is into girls and maybe girls and maybe boys too. But she's closeted. Obviously, her father is a pastor. He's very religious. And Evelyn's like, he hates that she might like women, but she would prefer him to, or prefer her to date like a white boy. Like that kind of thing. So they essentially like dated over the summer, but Ivy wanted to keep it a secret. Evelyn didn't want to, and so they broke up. Also, Ivy's dad like caught them like kissing or something like that too. So she's like, when Ivy asked if she wanted to come to this, she was like, yeah, because she still wants to like be around Ivy and she wants to try to get her back. But she is like an atheist. She doesn't believe in like demons or God or anything. So Brett says he wants to summon this demon because he wants it to make him rich. When have the demons done that? Okay. So he summons it, and very quickly it comes out and it cuts his head off. And literally, I listened to the audiobook. My book glitched throughout this whole book, and it's the only one. It did not glitch on any other story. It glitched throughout. It kept going like throughout this whole. It's so weird. It kept doing it. It did it like 4 or 5 times. None of the other stories did that.
No, I think I know the reason for that though.
Oh, okay. Is it purposeful?
So they they bleeped out, I think, the demon's name.
Oh. She's giving you the Evie treatment.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask you about that because I was like, there's a lot of parts throughout. There's a lot of parts in here where they have like, it looks like it's redacted.
Okay, because it kept going. I'm like, is that a glitch? And I was like, what are the chances? Oh, okay, yeah. I was like, what are the chances that it's only doing it on this one? I'm like, am I being possessed? I was like,
what did Keely get me into?
I'm like, what is this? Why is it only? And it didn't do it on the last one. And I was like, okay. Okay, so yeah, back to the story. Demon comes, it literally like cuts off his head, and it goes for Ivy, but Evelyn's like, no, take me. And the next thing she knows, she's like waking up, and she's in what's called the crossroad. So this demon, I don't know if he's a demon, whatever he is. He like is a man that has horns, and I was like, oh, it's the devil, but it's not. He's called the valet, and essentially, this demon that they summon is like out of control, and he hates when he's summoned, but like everyone in hell hates him as well. So he just keeps killing people and like overloading hell. So they are going to give her like this option to go back and basically banish him back to hell. And then she might have the chance to return to her body or whatever. And she's like, is this hell? And he's like, no, hell has nicer amenities. So basically she can like hover over the scene of like what happened or whatever. And she sees Brett is gone, the demon's gone, and Ivy is eating her body, but it's not really Ivy. It's because the demon has possessed her. So she like Ivy like gets in her bed and she like kind of comes out every now and then, and she's telling her dad like there's something like in me, like help me or whatever. So 3 days go by, and they're making Evelyn out to be like the leader of this, even though Brett is missing. Like Brett, they're making out to be like this golden boy. He would never do something like that. He wouldn't be a murderer. But then they're like making Evelyn out to be the leader of a satanic cult, and not even her own mom like stands up for her. Not a Ivy doesn't say anything. No one stands up for her. No one even cares about her. And so basically to come back, she has to possess someone's body. So she possesses Ivy's dad because she's like, if he gets killed from this, I'll be happy. Like, I don't care. So he's like making a sandwich and she possesses him and she's like, hi, remember me? And so she like goes in there to like the demon, and like basically she pretends to be like dumb and like use a cross on him even though she knows like that won't work. And basically it makes him lower his guard, and so he accidentally tells her his name, which I can't actually remember what the name was. Did you write that down? Because I was like, I didn't. It does tell it once in there, but I didn't put it down.
Let's see.
It's in the banishment scene.
Gazidun, maybe?
Yeah,
It's like Gazidun,
that could be correct.
I think.
Yeah, that's probably fine.
Yeah. However you pronounce that.
Okay, so where was I at? So she goes and she ends up like banishing him because like him telling her name is like, or his name is like the key to that. But before he like burns up and goes back to hell, he stabbed Ivy's dad in the chest, so he does end up dying. But then Ivy like comes to, and before he dies, like her dad like speaks or whatever, and Evelyn's pissed because she's like, oh, now she thinks that her dad saved her when really it was me. And so she's like, I'm about to jump into her body and be like, hey, this was me, not him. But before she can, she's like dragged back to the crossroads or whatever. And so the valet is like, hey, like really good job, I actually got a promotion because you did so good, and like we actually want you to be a demon hunter, do you want to do it? And they're like, or you can go back to like Earth. And she basically is like, Ivy, I like clearly doesn't want to like have this like strain of like being a lesbian or whatever it is. And obviously nobody else cares about me. So she's like, you know what? Yes, I am going to stay. I'm going to let Ivy have a normal life without shame. And he's like, are you ready to enter hell? And it ends. And I gave that a 5 stars.
I gave it like 4.5. I really liked it. Really liked it, especially the end. My only complaint for it is that, and I feel like it's a complaint for the majority of them that I have complaints for, which it's not a bad complaint. It's just I'm used to longer stories, and
Brett being gone.
it just happened too quick for. Yeah,
I wonder where his body
I enjoyed it thoroughly, but I definitely would read this if they did like a full length novel.
Yeah. Do they ever do that? Have you ever read any that become like full length?
I don't think so.
And I'm like, we read some good ones. Okay,
Yeah.
last one is The Road to Hell by our lead editor and author, Terry J. Benton-Walker. And this is a demonized house. So it starts with like, I loved you, but now I hate you. And essentially, this house wants this family. And so this house was like built, was it built by Sanchez, like the first person? And like Sanchez like was murdered there or whatever. And so like anyone who dies, it's basically it's murder house. Anybody who dies here stays here. And so like we're in the POV of the house all the time. And so the house is talking to the main child or whatever, and his name is Danger. And he's like, but you and your family came and I wanted you and I would do anything to have you. I would do anything to keep you here. And I wanted you guys to live here and live long lives and then die here and become part of this house. So Danger moves to this house because he has two dads. His dads are basically like flippers. They were going to flip this house, fix it up. They also both have like assistants who like work with them. And so they're like moving here. Danger's very upset because he like his dads are they're in it like they're gay, and then he had a boyfriend. He had to leave behind or whatever. They do this, and they're gonna live there like through the end of the summer to fix his house. There's also no cell service. I would not want to live here. And so he's like, I hate it here. So the house is like, listening to the dads, and like they almost leave at one point because Danger's unhappy. The house is more work than they expected. So the house is like, I couldn't let them leave. So he like lets people out. So in the attic, there's like this steel door blocking one ghost in who's like really, really bad. But then in the shed, there's like all these other ghosts. So he lets out some of them to like do some work around the house so that the family will stay. And so one of them that's let out is Alfred. And he goes and like shows himself to Danger, but only he can like only Danger can see Alfred. And he basically tells him like the house wants me to be your friend. But he's literally like he looks like how he is when he died. Like he has something sticking out of the back of his head because he was killed that way. And so he basically says like he died in like some kind of crash or something like that. But he says the house promises to let me out more if like I help it. So Alfred and Danger like start like, spending more time together. But like he did in order to like let out those ghosts, the house had to let out like the really bad ghosts, and he like knocked down all the dad's cameras, but he otherwise keeps the bad ghosts contained. So Alfred finally like they get close and he tells Danger like your family is in danger, the house is pissed off. And he basically says there's a really bad ghost that the house keeps in the attic, and like all of the ghosts are scared of that ghost. And the house is like, no, like, why would you do that? Like, why would you tell him that? Now he's going to leave. And he ends up punishing Alfred and like locks him back up. But whoever this really bad ghost is, his name is Booker Baldwin. He was friends with whoever owned the house at the time of when he died. And the owner had a wife who, and all three of them died there because Booker and the owner end up having like an affair, and the wife found out and she killed both of them and then killed herself. So that's why they're all stuck there. And they said that Booker was like the caretaker, and all he cares about are his flowers on the property. That's all he ever cares about. So Alfred, like I said, he gets punished. He can't come back out. So Danger's like, all right. He goes and tells his parents. He's like, yeah, we got to go. There's ghosts and they're trying to kill us. And his parents are like, well, we can't. We have too much invested in this house. Okay. And so the house is immediately pissed. So and also the house is pissed because they're like, well, we can't leave until like the summer's over and we're done. So he's like, what do you mean the summer? Like, I want you guys to stay here forever. Like, no. So like the next day, they like the dads and Danger go out on the town or whatever to try to like cheer Danger up. So like the two assistants are there working. So one of them goes up to the house, like to the attic to try to start working, and is immediately killed. He gets like dragged in and like he's taken out. So then later, like the family comes back and the other assistant, Sean, comes in. He like takes like samples of like the soil and stuff. And he like goes off to like do samples. And he comes back because Danger's like, I'm about to try to get out of here. And he literally sees this as that he like vomits up all these moths. And he dies too. And so then the dads are like, what they see that and they're like, oh, okay. So they're like, oh, we need to go. And Danger's like, yeah, I said that yesterday. So then the house is pissed. So it starts like shaking and it's like locking them in and it released all the ghosts. And like they see Alfred, like he like tears up the car. So like now they can't drive. So they're like, he's like, okay, Alfred showed me where I can use my phone. There's like one spot like a mile away where they can use the phone. So one of the dads is like, I used to be a track star. I'll run down there and see if I can do it. So he goes and he runs down there. And so then the other dad and Danger are still in the house. And Sanchez appears and he's like at the bottom of the stairs. He's like, this is my house. Like he's trying to kill them. So they go and hide in the attic because all of the ghosts are out. So the bad ghost isn't in the attic right now. So they go and hide. So then after a while, it quiets down. So they leave the attic and the other dad comes back. So he's fine. So they're like, look, it's the house. Like we have to take out the house. So they decide they're going to try to burn down the house. So Alfred comes back, and even though he like tore up the car, it was because he wanted them to stay. But then he decides that he's going to help them. So he like ends up peeing on the flowers, which pisses off the caretaker. So he chases after them instead of them, and like the house tries to like lock the parents in, but they literally like act down the door, and they end up like setting it on fire. And at the end, the house just says "F you too, Danger Carmichael," and it ends. I freaking loved it.
I really love this one. This one was one of my favorite 5-star reads. I feel like this felt very 13 Ghosts.
Yeah, when they like, I was like, when they released, I was gonna say that when they like released all the ghosts.
Yeah, but I really like this. I love the like sentient house, like just wanting to be loved, and I don't know. It was good. It was really good.
I like that one. I was like, and I like the house POV. Like, it was interesting. I like the different POVs. Okay. Oh. All right, and then so basically we just get an epilogue at the end, and it's basically saying like this is all supposed to be on based on like true stories. So what if the woman from the protege story, which her name was like Nona or Nana or something like that, what if she gave like what's that guy's name? Jacoby, whatever his name is. The guy from the beginning.
Yeah.
Jacoby, a deal basically for 13 souls, and he basically got to be like rich or what successful in like some other way, and that's why he disappeared. So that is how that ends. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm trying to think. I think I gave it a 4.75 all over for like the total.
What did I
rating.
give it? I ended up giving it about 4.5 to 5 stars. So yeah, probably 4.75.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. Again, like there was only
Same.
like two that like weren't my favorites, but like overall I really I enjoyed it. And it is a YA, like I just, I think it was just a fun read, and they all kind of have like some underlying meaning or something going
Message,
on.
yeah.
Yeah. Trying to see. So
No.
I guess so what was your favorite one out of them?
Oof,
It's hard. I have
that
like a
is
top three.
such a hard one. I would say maybe the Tiffany D. Jackson one.
Yeah, I really like that one. I'm not gonna pick that one then. I'm gonna say the Karen Strong one, the Hell is Other Demons. I really like that one. Too. My top three, I like that one, the Roses, whatever that was, and then the last one, the Rotel. But I actually no, because I really like the Golden Dragon one too. That
Yeah.
one is at the beginning, and I kind of forget about that one. I did really like that one
If
too.
I were to pick my top three, it would probably be the let me see the top threes. It would be the Golden Dragon, Everything Coming Up Roses, and probably The Road to Hell.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, it definitely, especially the ones at the end, it was very a good, like, strong ending for sure. Are there reviews?
Yes, there are. Let's see. Starting off with a 5-star. I was honestly not prepared for the perfection of this anthology. Every story in here was so good. It's so rare that I find an anthology collection where every story was a 4.5 star or 4 to 5 star. So many awesome horror slasher tropes fill the pages. It's creepy, unsettling, and gory as heck. And I loved every single second of this book. I will 100% be buying a copy and rereading it because I cannot stop thinking about some of these stories. Literally the perfect book to pick up for Halloween. And then 1 star is 1%. Only 18 out of a little over 1,400. Only 18 of them were 1 stars. Okay, so this person obviously did not read the book. So 1 star. This book is a blatant excuse to be racist. They attempt to be tongue-in-cheek and directly acknowledge this, but being racist while joking is still racist. If it was a book solely about killing black people, it wouldn't get published, but it's only white men, so that makes it okay. It's a joke. Anyways, beside the blatant racism and propaganda, the stories are also just incredibly mediocre. And blah, 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 blah. Sir, it wasn't just white men that died.
Oh my
Bradley.
gosh.
It wasn't just white men. And, the, second story, all of them died, and at least 3 of them were black. So.
Yeah. Evelyn dies. She was blind. What is going on?
But.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry that you feel that way.
Right.
Oh. Well, our next one is our book club book. It is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers.
Ooh.
By Jesse Sutanto. Is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So that is our next one. And then our Onyx Storm episode, which is already recorded, but is coming to you shortly. So that is it for this one. And we will talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Yay.